Hey, this is Yazuki Wolf, and welcome to BenkyouKai Episode 1. Now, I do have an Episode 0 on my channel, which goes into sort of like an overview of the Japanese language, the Japanese writing system, and how this all works, because it's not as simple as you would think if you're just coming from like a Western language like English or Spanish or whatnot. It kind of works in a very different way, so if you want to get sort of the preamble to this and kind of have that overview, go ahead and check out episode 0. But for today, in episode 1, we're going to be learning Hiragana and to some extent Katakana. I think we're going to be focusing mainly on Hiragana for the most part, but I will keep Katakana on the screen just to kind of increase your awareness of that, kind of even if it's just subconsciously for the time being. But in a nutshell, Hiragana, and I go more into this into the episode 0, but in a nutshell, Hiragana is the kind of writing system for Japanese terms in Japanese, while Katakana is the writing system for non-Japanese terms or terms that have been originated from outside the Japanese language within the Japanese writing system. I know that sounds really confusing, so if you don't really understand what I'm talking about, then please check out episode 0 because it's a lot to go into right now. So anyways, you see here I have a little graph here, and you'll notice that on the top of the graph we have some consonants like K, S, T, N, and so forth. And then on the left side of the graph we have the vowels. It's the letters A, I, U, E, and O, but this is pronounced A, I, U, E, O. It's basically the same as Spanish. I think just the order in the way they present it in the alphabet is different, but the pronunciation is basically the same. So we have A, I, U, E, O. And let me just zoom in a little bit. You'll notice here that we have, there's no consonant in this column. So an A sound without any consonant is just A sound. An E sound without any consonant is just E, and so forth. And so on this graph, you'll see that on the left-hand side, you have the Hiragana, and on the right-hand side, you have the Katakana. The Hiragana, you may notice, is generally more calligraphic. It's very smooth and has lots of like curved lines that you can imagine yourself writing with a brush, whereas the right side is a little bit more modern. It's kind of like imagine what you would do with a pen or like with a pencil. It's very it has lots of very straight, rigid lines, and so this is more or less a approximation or a simplification rather of the Hiragana. And if, as you'll see in episode 0, the Hiragana is what is being used for Japanese terms, and that's actually why we're going to focus on Hiragana for this series for the most part right now, because I want to teach you some Japanese words along with the actual writing system. So as I introduce Japanese words, we're going to be using Hiragana primarily, so that's what we're going to use. But for example, if you wanted to write your name, provided that you don't have a Japanese name, your name would be written in katakana. Now this is going to be a little difficult because in Japanese the lettering, it's not consonants and vowels, it's a combination of consonants and vowels. So there are cases where you're not going to be able to have a one-to-one relation. For example, if your name was Stan, you wouldn't be able to write an S and then a T because there is no S in Japanese, there is no T in Japanese. So the best you can do is you can take the S, and then the U sound in Japanese is actually fairly soft. So a lot of times when you don't want to stress the vowel, you're going to use a U in Japanese. So let me get another layer here so that I can give you this example. So we're going to write the name Stan. So we're taking the S and the U to make Su. So that's the first thing we're going to write, Su. And then next we're going to have T and the A for Ta. So you're not going to have a, there is no sta. So I know in English you would say stan, but there's no a sound in Japanese. So the closest we can do is we can do a. So we have sta. So this is suta. But generally I'm saying since the u is very soft in Japanese, it often flows into whatever's after it. So this would be pronounced as sta. So it's basically the same as a st. But and then now the last part is a little bit tricky because we have the n sound. But I mean, from what I told you already, you may imagine that you might want to do the U sound here, but there's a kind of a special rule here because there's the one case where you can have a consonant without a vowel after it is N. And you'll see here on this end we have just the N sound. So this here is just the N sound, no consonant. So you can actually put that here. And now you have stun. And actually that kind of sounds like stun, like if you're playing an RPG game or something, like you stun your opponent. So you may want to actually in the middle like put like a, so this is just like so this looks like a little hyphen, but actually that just elongates the sound. So instead of a stun, it becomes stan. So there's a little bit it's a little bit closer to what the what you're actually going for. So just sound out your name and try to figure out the closest approximation of what you can write with these characters, and go ahead and give that a try. You can screen cap this if you want for reference. Also, this is basically just a capture from Wikipedia. So the Wikipedia, go look up Wikipedia Hiragana, Katakana, and you can get the same image there as well. All right, so that was just a quick thing about Katakana, but now we're going to move into the Hiragana, and for this episode, we're going to be focusing on the first column here, the a, I, U, E, O. So let me hide the rest of that. There we go. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of words that you can make with these. Just a quick side note, I can't really teach you how to write this in this lesson. I'm just introducing you to these, because to actually learn how to write this, you have to practice it. And I'm not going to have a lot of like, okay, repeat after me and let's try doing this together, or those types of like things that you would actually do in a class. This is just teaching you the writing. So I recommend that you do the practice on your own, and then supplement your own practice with this lesson to kind of guide you through the process. These videos are going to build off of themselves, so unlike a lot of the other videos on YouTube, which I do recommend checking out, especially if it's a native Japanese speaker, so you can get the pronunciation down, but most videos that I've noticed on YouTube, they tend to be at an introductory level, like perpetually, because they want anyone who comes into the video at any time to always be able to interact with whatever the lesson is for that week. Whereas I'm doing a very much A to Z type of approach, where every video is going to build off of itself, so I'm hoping to guide you through the process of becoming a beginner to an intermediate to eventually an advanced Japanese speaker. So if that sounds interesting to you, then subscribe, and let's try to go on this journey together. So just very quickly, focusing on just the hiragana. Let's hide the katakana for now. We have a, I, U, E, and O. So go ahead and try to practice that on your own time. Do a screen cap if you like, and once you're ready to move on, we'll go ahead and start doing some words. All right, so let's open up the examples of some of the words that you can make with these. So first off, let me hide that as well. All right, I'm going to be putting the kanji here as well, just that you get used to seeing it. You don't worry about learning it right now. I just am a strong believer in being immersed in the language, and that's very much the approach that I took when I was learning Japanese. And so get used to just having things you don't know, but having it kind of just being absorbed subconsciously. And that in the future, when we go into that, then it will click a lot faster, I think, if you already have that sort of in the back of your head. So this is the kanji here for ue, and you could see that written out here with the hiragana, u and e. So that's ue, and that means up. Next, there's no kanji for this, so I'm leaving that blank here, but this is e. So you have e and then e again. So when you put these next to each other, it just makes the pronunciation longer, so it becomes e, and that means good. And this comes up a lot in Japanese. So like kyou wa ii tenki desu ne. So like the weather today is good. You know, it comes up a lot. Like, ii desu ka? Is it all right if I do this? Like, sore demo ii desu ka? It's very, very common. Now, you see the same e, but then we put an e at the end, so we got ie. And this actually is a very common word. This means no. So, is it all right if I do this? Kore yatte mo ii desu ka? Ie. No, it's not all right. So now this is very similar, but we dropped one of the e's. So now we get rid of one of the e's, and we got ie. So it's not ie, it's ie, and this is house. Once again, I'm not a native Japanese speaker. I lived in Japan for 12, 13 years or so, so I definitely get by. And I work in a company with 90% probably 95% Japanese coworkers, so I use Japanese every day, but I would recommend that you get your pronunciation guides from native speakers if possible. Right, and moving down, we have ao. Ao. So a plus o makes ao, and that is blue. All right, and now I'm kind of pushing it here, but I mean, it's hard when we only have vowel sounds, but here we have O and then O, and once again, that just stresses the sound, so it becomes O, and that's just an exclamation. You'll hear that a lot in Japan, and actually if you're reading manga or something, that's going to come up a lot. It's just like an exclamation of kind of like surprise or like, I don't know, glee, I guess. I don't know. You just read manga and get a idea of like when people use that type of expression, but you'll hear it a lot in Japan. And now it seems like I made a mistake here, but we'll correct that. So here it says ai. So this is ai. And this is a very common kanji. You'll probably see people with tattoos of this. This means, it's not an exclamation. I'm sorry, that was a mistake there. That means love. And actually, let me change my my brush for a second so that makes it a little bit more readable. Yep, so I is love, and you'll hear that a lot. Now, well, I'm sorry, you'll see that a lot. In Japan, you don't actually hear people say that word very often, and that may be a cultural thing we'll talk about later. But you actually, not a lot of people say "I love you," and they don't. It's not like in America where you say, "Oh, I love ice cream." People wouldn't say "ice cream, I des." You know, that it's a much deeper word, and it has a lot stronger meaning here. So it's kind of reserved in how we would use that word here. But that's probably another video. And then moving on now, we have e. So. And this is the kanji there for that. E is a painting or a drawing. And a lot of people on my channel are aspiring mangaka and other artists, so this is a very important word to have. And it just means painting or a drawing. I wanted to say picture, but then if you say picture, it could give you the image of a photograph, and photograph is another word, so I don't want to get that confused. So let's just remember that E is for painting. If you want to be a manga artist and you go to school here, it'll come up a lot in terms of explaining your picture and what you work on, and other things like that. So that was fairly quick. Go ahead and do a screen cap of that if you want to review these words in the future. And we're going to move on in the next episode to the K column, where we'll learn ka, ki, ku, ke, and ko. All right, hopefully that was useful to you. If you like this series and you want to hear more, go ahead and subscribe. Until next time, live boldly and be creative. Yoroshiku.